Hey, hello, everybody. Excuse me, gosh. Carol Scott here. The video that you were just watching is from the state of California, and just thought that'd be a good way to start this conversation today. Next slide, please. So my name is Carol Scott, and I'm with the National Ombudsman Resource Center. Our speakers today are Jeff Findley from the New Jersey State Ombudsman Program, Stephanie Wheeler and Alvin Anchetta from the Alaska State Ombudsman Program, Mary Kinnery with Catholic Charities Senior and Caregiver Support Services Ombudsman Program in Schenectady, New York, Greg Shelley and Melinda Schofield from Harris County Ombudsman Program in Houston, Texas, and Beverly Laubert, who's the National Ombudsman Program Coordinator with the Administration for Community Living. Next slide. So these are some of the resources that the Ombudsman Resource Center has. On the Getting Started page, there's a toolkit, and then there's a new video that we have just released nationwide. I'm sure that many of you have seen it. I think, excuse me, we were going to watch it, but I think we're going to skip that for now. And if we have time at the end, we'll come back and watch that. But when you get a copy of these slides, which you will be getting here, hopefully during this, you'll get them. And if you don't get a copy of the slides today, we will have them available on Monday, along with this presentation. So apologize that so with that, let me say next slide. So our agenda today is to talk about volunteer recruitment, some of the things that these 5 states have been doing, the things that work, the things that maybe they're looking at improving. And then we're going to end this 75-minute webinar with talking about volunteer recognition and thanking the many volunteers. And so I'm going to turn it over at this point to Jeff.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Carol. So my name is Jeff Findley, and I'm from the New Jersey State Long-Term Care Ombudsman. I am the supervisor of the field operations for the program. So before I start talking about the program a little bit, I just wanted to give you all a little bit more information about our office. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so just to give you a little more information, that we are an independent state agency. We are in but not of the Department of Treasury, and the ombudsman, who is Lori Brewer in New Jersey, is appointed by the governor, and we are a centralized program. Next slide, please. So as I said before I go into the volunteer advocate program, I just want to make everyone aware of the other programs that we have. We have the Certified Volunteer Advocate Program, which is obviously what I'm supervisor of. We also have investigations. We also have the Resident Enlightenment. I'm sorry, we changed the name. It's the REP program, which I'll talk about briefly. We have the I Choose Home program, which is also known to many other people as Money Follows the Person. We also have community engagement, and we also have the ethics committee. So I just briefly wanted to talk about that. So in New Jersey, we have a team of investigators who are reactive. So anytime a call comes into our office about concerns from a facility, we have investigators that will go out and investigate those concerns. The 2 newest, which formerly I was a member of, which is actually I was hired as, was the social isolation program. Lori Brewer, our ombudsman, created this during the COVID crisis. And the program was actually created so that we could go out and visit residents who were isolated in their facilities. They weren't allowing families to visit, so this program was created because of the um, pandemic not being what it was at one time. We actually changed the name to RAP, and where we have a team of social workers and activity directors go out to the facilities and still visit with residents. It's not reactive, it's more of a proactive type of approach, and that is new, as well as the CE Community Engagement Program, which is really focuses on building a network of residents and families to be self-advocates. So those two new programs were created to really get it also out there to work hand in hand with our volunteer advocates in the community. And it's been working out great. It's been successful. And the REC program is a lot of states also have that. It can be active when necessary. As a social worker, that's my background. I've never been a part of one, but I know that they are there for the support of the resident if necessary. Next slide, please. So basically what I just discussed a few minutes ago is just a breakdown of and I'm not going to read all and I know we're on a time limit here, but that's the investigations, the resident experience program, the money follows the person, community engagement, and the regional ethics committee. So that's on the slide. It goes into a little more detail. Next slide, please. So now we're to the certified advocate program. For a while, we called it the Volunteer Advocate Program. We wanted to give more credibility to the advocates out there. We have currently right now about 154 certified volunteer advocates. So we put the title certified on it because they are trained, they are certified, and they are professional. And we want to give them that title. And I have to admit that ever since we gave them the title, they feel more empowered. They feel like they're part of a team, and it was a great tool we had to basically let them know that we acknowledge them. They are professional, and when they go into facilities, they're acknowledged as such. So I also want to state this is the map of New Jersey. Obviously, we have 7 regions. We originally had 5. And the reason why we did 7 was we wanted to create a smaller environment, a more personal environment where we have 7 also regionals who cover that area. And those 7 regionals work with those advocates. And by shortening the area, they're able to be in contact with them more, visit them in their facilities a lot more. And it's been a great change from the 5 to the 7 regions. Next slide, please. So there's this, I have a little story. Hopefully I'm not going to run into time, but this is our new brochure. We had an old brochure that was a little more generic, showing a resident in a nursing home setting. I was doing a tabling event in one of the counties, and when I was talking to somebody about becoming an advocate, a young couple came up to the table and they picked up the brochure and they looked at it, and the one person said to the other person, looks interesting. We would like to join it, but we're not older. We're younger, so we wouldn't qualify." And they put it down. Before I could say anything, they walked away. And it was that realization of a lesson learned that the advertisement did not really include diversity with age or anything like that. So we stepped back, we had a meeting, and we said we have to redo this brochure so that when people look at it, they realize it's for everybody. We're looking for everybody to be volunteer. We will train you. And this was something that it was an eye opener. And so I know you can see it. This is a picture of our new brochure. And we included as many different types of differences we could on the brochure, and we're very proud of it. Next slide, please. So the Certified Volunteer Advocate Program, I wanted to talk about as far as recruitment goes. Recently, starting in September, we worked with an advertising firm to get our name out there more. We wanted to recruit a lot more advocates than we had. I mean, in New Jersey, we're very lucky to have over 100 volunteers, and we just want to keep building because we have over 600 facilities, which includes assisted livings and boarding homes in New Jersey, but we really want to get these buildings filled. We have a very large population in New Jersey, and we know there's people out there that are really looking to get out there and help. So with the advertising firm, we were able to recruit more advocates. Our biggest recruitment was from radio, and that was something that we wanted to see. We tried different other avenues, and on the slide you can see um, we used Tap Into, which in New Jersey is like an advertisement that's more local to community. We had success with that. We did newspaper ads. We just, whatever we thought, and we worked with the advertising firm, whatever they thought was a great idea was something that we brought up. We used traditional methods too, as far as tabling events. Our a lot of our advocates also want to market when we bring them on. So they went to their local libraries with the posters, and they were able to hang up posters saying that we are recruiting and looking for advocates. And it's been a great success. Next slide, please. So this is a visual I wanted to show everybody of the different types of advertisements we did on the far right. It's the Be a Superhero. In New Jersey for a while during COVID, there was a lot of signs of the workers being heroes and stuff. So we really wanted to move with that. And we have an advocate wearing a cape. And so it's been a successful poster. And we have a picture of the Tap Into. We have NewJersey.com advertisement. And on the far left, we have our ombudsman, Lori Brewer, at a tabling event talking to somebody. Next slide, please. And right down here is the breakdown of the numbers of we had 87 applicants since September till now sign up, and they're currently either in the process of being trained, we're in training, or in the process of being placed. So it's very exciting that we were able to acquire that many people interested in the program. And like I said, a lot was from the radio. On the screen, you can see the different breakdowns of what we had. And it's as far as yeah, it has, I'm sorry, it has the radio. It's a little hard for me to see when I'm looking at the screen here, but it has the whole breakdown of that. Next slide. And that's it. And I see Carol, so I know my time is coming close. So Um, thank you. And the recognition part, I know we saved it towards the end. So thank you, Carol, for letting me speak. Thank you, everybody. And I would like to introduce Stephanie, who is from Alaska, and she is next. So welcome, Stephanie. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Carol. Greetings, everyone from Alaska. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about our volunteer program. My name is Stephanie Wheeler, as Jeff mentioned, and I am co-presenting today with Deputy Long-Term Care Ombudsman Alvin Anchetta, and I'm the State Long-Term Care Ombudsman. So in Alaska, we are a centralized program with a small team of 6 permanent full-time staff. So therefore, volunteers are truly an important component of our program as they help us to achieve our mission to advocate for seniors in long-term care settings. Next slide. So I wanted to take a moment to recognize one of our volunteers, Miss Margaret Valarmos. Margaret has been with our program for over 5 years. So wanted to share one of her accomplishments. We just got notified this past week that Margaret is a recipient of the First Lady's Volunteer Award, right? And so this is huge for our program. The volunteer ceremony award program will be held in May. So we're really excited about this opportunity to show off Margaret and many of our volunteers and all that they do. So congratulations to Margaret. But I would also share that upon receiving the news this week, Margaret wrote, "But for you and the work you all do, I could not and would not have received this award. I am truly thankful for the opportunity to help people. It makes me happy. Humbly and sincerely, Margaret." So I just want to say that anytime you nominate a volunteer for a local community or a state volunteer awards program, it also increases your program's visibility and highlights the amazing work that you and your team do for seniors in long-term care settings. So next slide. So as I mentioned, I am co-presenting with Alvin Anchetta. And what works for our program is to have a staff member dedicated to coordinating the activities of the volunteer program. And this is the role of Alvin Anchetta, our Deputy Long-Term Care Ombudsman, who is responsible for the recruitment and for the training of our volunteers with the support of the rest of our team. So additionally, our long-term care Ombudsman Specialist Stephanie Welsh does most of the administrative work to help prepare for trainings. She does the postings on social media. She's so creative and just an amazing person. She creates these amazing posters that we get to hang up across the state of Alaska in different places. So thank you to Alvin and Stephanie for really, and the rest of our team for really making our program work. It has made a world of difference to have a dedicated team member to support the volunteer program. And next slide. So why are volunteers important in Alaska and to our program? While we're a huge state covering over 600,000 square miles of territory, we are a small population, 730,000 altogether across the state. So Alaska is a huge state, but here's the kicker. Only 70% of our communities, or 70% of our communities are not accessible by road travel. So that means our folks in Anchorage, our staff are all Anchorage based. And so they travel constantly, right? And therefore, we do a lot of flying to those 27 communities in Alaska, where there are 20 skilled nursing facilities and over 300 assisted living homes. So our goal is to really recruit as many volunteers as we possibly can across the state, but to have at least one volunteer in every community that we travel to. Next slide. So just want to highlight a couple of data points around volunteers. So before COVID in 2019, we had 60 volunteers. So in 2019, those 60 volunteers donated over 905 hours of their time to visit with residents in long-term care settings. So altogether with staff and volunteers, we were able to make 1,049 unannounced visits to facilities across the state of Alaska. But guess what? 414 of those facilities were visited by volunteers. So that's huge. That tells a story. And then after COVID, we lost over 75% of our volunteers. So we're currently gradually rebuilding our volunteer program. And so in federal fiscal year 2023, this past year, we had 20 volunteers who donated over 280 hours of their volunteer time to visit 127 facilities across the state of Alaska. And so therefore you see our total of 827 facility visits across the state of Alaska, with 127 of those facilities that were visited by our volunteers. So Alvin will go into more detail about how we're gradually rebuilding our volunteer program. And I'm going to turn it over to Alvin. Thank you, Alvin.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Aloha Friday to everybody. And good afternoon or good morning to wherever you are. I am pumped about this presentation today. As you can see, it's morning here. I've got my coffee, so I'm pumped. I don't have much time, so let's kick it off, right? So let's dive into some key strategies we've identified to build quality volunteer programs. So towards the end of last year, during our strategic planning meeting with our team, we identified 4 bullet points that you see here. We were able to focus on target recruitment, positive experiences, clear expectations, and feedback. So having those there, we've been able to recruit from diverse sources, coffee shops, grocery stores, senior centers, conversations that we've had with everybody out in the community, social media, and of course, medical and nursing students. We've created a team bonding event and recognition programs to create a rewarding experience, promoting retention and commitment. Next slide, please. Don't have much time. So a successful volunteer program begins with a well thought out recruitment plan, right? So we'll discuss the importance of reassuring our volunteers' needs, reviewing training curriculum, identifying effective recruitment strategies, and collaborating with our team on social media. In 2024, so our hairy goal is to recruit 10 volunteers by the end of this year, right? Sasquatch and Yetis are welcome to apply. But how do we do that? Next slide. Moving along. So our goal 1 to recruiting 10 volunteers, as you see here, we recruit through college students, community members, and so forth. But the most important part here is identifying communities where we need more volunteers. As you see here, rural areas, not so much more in the Anchorage area, but we're always looking. And how do we do that? We outreach through the senior centers. We've sent letters to the community senior centers to do that. We've hit social media. We've hung posters up at coffee shops, as I said. Okay. And next slide. These are the dates that we've set for our orientation. We spread those out because it gives time for, as we recruit volunteers, it gives them a time frame of when they can prepare and if they want to participate in the particular dates. And I know we're running out of time, so Carol, there's the rest of the slides that you can look at, and we're available. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Mary.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Kennery, and I am the program director for the long-term care ombudsman program here in upstate New York surrounding the capital region. We have a 10-county region and about 100 long-term care facilities. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about our targeted volunteer recruiting marketing campaign that we engaged in this past fall. Next slide. So because we have our host agency is Catholic Charities, we do have the benefit of utilizing a communications team. So I tapped into their expertise in talking to them about the backgrounds of our typical volunteers, and also looking to recruit in different ways to recruit a more diverse pool of volunteers. And they basically advised me that to market to older adults, retirees is kind of our base in our region, that we could engage in both online and offline strategies, given that users of Facebook over 55, that amounts to about 22%. And also recognizing that they like to watch YouTube, Netflix, and Hulu. And then also, of course, face-to-face interactions and print advertising, it is also a piece of the recruitment plan. But we did really zero in on Facebook, because that is just really a platform that older adults engage in. Next slide. So this is our spend for just a couple of months. Next slide. And these are three different ads that appeared on Facebook. This is Bev, our volunteer, who posed with her brother Don, who was then a nursing home resident. We had particular counties that we wanted to target that are more rural counties surrounding the Albany, New York area, where we had less volunteer interest in the past. So we really could use volunteers in some of these rural areas, and we looked to geographically target those places. Next slide. So the great thing about Facebook is you do get these really detailed analytics. So just on this ad of Bev sitting and talking with her brother, this ad reached 4,000 people. And of that, or just a little over 4,000, of that, 167 people engaged with the ad. That means that 161 clicked to learn more, and 5 left a reaction, like a heart or a care button. And actually 1 person saved this ad, which we thought was interesting. So the breakdown of age demographics saw the largest reach in the 65 plus age category, and with women as being the highest engagers at just over 50%. So it's about 55%. Next slide, please. In this slide, we went outside the nursing home, and our friend Sharon from our communications team took this lovely photo with the daisies, the black-eyed Susans in the back. And this is another form of the ad, and our marketing team came up with the slogan, "Your voice, their rights, make a difference as an ombudsman volunteer." This one also had about 5,000 reached, and of that, 157 had engagement. So that means more than 150 clicked a link to learn more, and 7 clicked on a reaction. The demographics breakdown were similar to the first 2. Next slide, please. And this ad was actually the highest performer. It's, this is a recently renovated nursing home with a lovely fireplace and a lovely setting for families to gather and sit. And this one featured 6,500 people was the reach. And this was the best performing ad that we carried through the months that we ran the ads. This had a reach of 6,000, and 189 people engaged with the ad, meaning 183 clicked on a link to learn more, and 6 clicked to leave a reaction. And again, the breakdown was similar The largest reach was 65 and over, with women this time being just about 59%. Next slide. So another key recommendation from our marketing team was to tap into this 55 plus life magazine that all of our local grocery stores and coffee shops and different libraries carry as a free publication. So what we did was we ran a story about Bev and her brother on the 55 plus life website. And it allowed a chance for Bev to talk about why she's an advocate, what she does as an ombudsman, how she feels it's fulfilling, and her recommendation, that people check out volunteering. So we thought that was a great idea, and probably in the next coming year, we might look to actually place a story in the print publication and see if that gets a good response. And this digital website article was the amount there that you see. Next slide. A little close-up of our picture. So this idea came to us from a Central New York Ombudsman Regional Program, one of our sister programs out in Central New York. They did a direct mailer, and we thought this was an interesting way to target specific counties where there's high need. So this was the front of our mailer. Next slide. And this was the back of our mailer. So we had this nice QR code. And so that directly linked to a page that was established by our state ombudsman, who did their own rigorous recruitment advertising campaign, kind of overlapping at the same time that we did it. And this QR code takes people to a sign up link that the state ombudsman created. And it's just a little, a quick, give your name, your county, your basic information, and, basically why, what your interest is in training to become a volunteer. And this back of the mailer told a little bit about what the time commitment is like, and the training, what the training entails. Next slide, please. And this was our reach and the cost for the mailers. So again, we had the benefit of a communications team that did the layout for us, so we did not have to pay for graphic design. But this is the breakdown by counties and the households that we reached, and the cost for the printing and the mailer in total. Next slide, please. This is a little bit about our mission with Catholic Charities in general. The next slide also has a breakdown of my specific Catholic Charities program and the different array of services that we provide, including quite a lot of outreach to older adults in our community. With that, I'll turn it over to Greg and Melinda from Houston. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Shelley, the managing local ombudsman for the Harris County program out of Houston, Texas. And Marian Schofield, our volunteer coordinator, is with us, and she's going to talk later in the part about efforts for showing appreciation. Our program is actually housed in the third largest county in the country in terms of population size. And as such, it's very large in the number of facilities as well. 100 nursing homes currently, and over 280 licensed assisted living facilities to cover. We are a staff of 8 currently, and that's the largest we've ever been. Happiest to say that we are a fairly large volunteer group. We have typically about 80 active certified ombudsmen every year. And last year was kind of the exception. And as I've heard other people talk about some struggles with pandemic related stuff, but we still managed to have 73 active last year, and things are looking up this fiscal year, which ends in August as well. We have 28 AAAs, area agencies on aging here, and we're in the Houston, part of the Houston Health Department. Ours is. We're the only one of two actually that are contracted out, and the only one that's actually housed in a university. We're part of the CISIC School of Nursing at UT Health in the Texas Medical Center. Next slide, please. So our general recruitment strategy, at least in terms of what I would call return on investment and results, Volunteer Match and Volunteer Houston, that online part of things for us is by far the biggest return. And a close, I guess a fairly close second is word of mouth from volunteers in total numbers. We do a fair amount of activity inside of the Volunteer Houston site. It's really part of the overall Volunteer Match nationwide. And by that, I mean, when we're having different training classes, Marion will set up different events to keep things as possible, search engine optimization, trying to keep it as relevant to the top and not get too stale or old in terms of the last postings that we had. Other big sources, public presentations, particularly ones that we can find that have recurring annual or semi-annual events. One of the groups that we've had a fair amount of success with is elder mediation training group that I get to present to whenever they have the classes. And that's mostly at least once a year. I usually get a couple of folks out of that class. Of course, we have to spend time talking about the difference between mediators and advocates, but it does end up being a pretty successful form of outreach for us. Media interviews, when we can get them, those have kind of tapered off, but have been able to do a couple of radio interviews. And another big source for us is when we do have funds available for advertising, we run ads in the Houston Chronicle on Sundays, and those tend to be a pretty good return as well. Social media activity, every now and then we get some folks coming in. We haven't tried paid Facebook ads. That's a really good thought from some of my predecessors there. I think it's something that we'll look into in the near future. Some success with a pretty stocked YouTube channel. And even on the professional side of things, using just my LinkedIn account, have had a little bit of success with posting ombudsman related activities, especially upcoming training activities, and getting folks in from that angle as well. And love going out to the health fairs and just general outreach. Sometimes it helps with volunteer recruitment. I think more often than not, it's more about consumer education in those, but those are helpful from time to time on the recruitment side and help get the word out. More recently, it just kind of occurred to us that we're part of a big university system. So it'd be nice if we could get included in some of their communications. And they've helped us out by including us in weekly or monthly newsletters, and even adding us to an email distribution list that includes current staff, faculty, and retirees, which, as others had mentioned, in our group as well, the folks who are retired tend to be the more longer term volunteers, and the folks that have longer term success, I guess. Huge generalization, but that is in general the case. Next slide, please. So some of the lessons we've learned over the years, it's really, because we are part of a school, we sometimes get lots of student interest. We haven't had a lot of folks stick with it. And I think that's just because while they're kindred spirits and they have that willingness to commit and give of themselves, they may be overextended themselves, especially the folks who are going to school full time and working at the same time. As well, I found this my first year as a volunteer coordinator 14 years ago. I wanted to do as many classes as I could in a year, driving the staff and the managing ombudsman crazy. But what I found is when I deviated from our normal schedule for just one person, I generally didn't manage to get them through the complete training. For the folks who commit to going to our 2 set classroom trainings, generally have a much higher graduation rate. So essentially they're investing something into it, by getting started, at least committing to those 2 days. Some who are still working full time and maybe have to sacrifice more than the folks who are retired. But that commitment tends to keep folks with it. Even in my own story, when I first volunteered with the program, the training was like way on the other side of Harris County. It was on a Saturday. I wasn't happy with that. I almost didn't join. I'm so glad I managed to. But once I went to that first class, I was definitely staying around for the second. We typically schedule 3 sets of trainings in a calendar year. That's with 2 classroom trainings on subsequent months. But we typically only do three of those groups in a year. Of course, that means you got to be open-minded to what the volunteers are saying. Some of the other folks had mentioned the importance of surveying them and getting their feedback. That's changed some of the things we do, even moving away from weekends, because we found that even with the retired folks, a lot of them had wanted to have, this is my own experience too, wanted to have weekends available for their friends and family and had time during the week. So we've done things such as shift our own volunteer appreciation luncheon to a weekday instead of a Saturday. And we stopped doing trainings on the Saturdays as well. We typically do them on Thursdays all day. The pandemic pushed us into the virtual world, which I think is actually a good thing in the long run, because a lot of folks were deterred by long drives across this very large county in notoriously bad Houston traffic. Whereas now they can join us without having to do that commute and then have to go in person to the placement visits thereafter. We drive this home with our volunteers as much as possible, and we try to live it and more than speak it, that we're resident centered, right? We're resident driven, but we also want this program to be volunteer driven and volunteer centered. So we've opened our groups up to some things that are a little bit different. We have some facilities, large facilities that have 2 ombudsmen placed at them. That takes a special pair of people who are willing to collaborate and communicate effectively. We've had a number of folks that weren't necessarily quite ready for the experience of the large, heavy Medicaid facilities, and they've been much more willing to go to some of our nicer assisted living facilities, for instance. And on the other hand, some folks have been placed in continuing care retirement communities that are kind of on the higher end and not really seeing the action they thought they were going to. And so we've been able to keep an ear for that and be able to place them in more challenging, possibly more complex driven facilities. And then making sure that when it comes to the CD requirements, especially now that they're up to 18 a year, finding ways to help them get them as easy as possible. So we've expanded what used to be 4 3-hour continuing education events in person a year. After feedback, we've knocked those down to 4 2-hour events. They prefer those. And then I do a monthly Q&A and CE event, sometimes with guest speakers, in order to give them extra opportunities. But as I mentioned before, we also have YouTube and Facebook materials out there for them to use as well. Next slide, please. Something I cringe when I hear, and I hear sometimes facility staff say that, well, that person's just a volunteer. I have to remind my own staff sometimes that's not something we should be saying. I always remind the volunteers that once they're certified, they have the same authority as I do to be an advocate and to investigate complaints on behalf of residents. Want to make sure, and I say this as a bit of a hypocrite because I know I don't get every success story out there to folks, but I do endeavor to do it. And I think it's a very important thing to make sure, especially in larger volunteer groups, that helps them feel connected to the successes on a regular basis. Keeping lines of communication open, making sure that they know that they can reach out to the managing ombudsman or volunteer coordinator throughout the experience to share things, concerns, and gives us a chance to get things fixed before they decide to push up and leave. And then keeping everyone informed about the state of the program on some kind of regular basis, at least monthly, the status of staff, our collective successes, and finding it as a two-way street and making sure that we're getting input from everybody at every level as much as possible. And then the next slide. Take that. Next slide. Yeah. Thanks, Shelley. Appreciate your time. Thanks, Carol. Perfect time.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. thank all of you. We're gonna jump back to a recruitment video. And Libby, go ahead and start this. This is from the Alaska Ombudsman Program.
To join our amazing team of Ombudsman representatives. We advocate for residents in long-term care facilities all over the state of Alaska. Long-term care ombudsman volunteers are superheroes in disguise. Volunteers visit residents, educate them about their rights, and advocate on their behalf. Visit our website and apply to be a volunteer long-term care ombudsman today.
Great, thank you. You know, on the NORC website under getting started, there are a bunch of videos from many states. So if you've not looked at those, I encourage you to do that. And if you have a video that's not on our website and you want to share that with us, you can send that to the Ombud Center at theconsumervoice.org. So this is our opportunity and time. The month of April is officially volunteer appreciation time. And we are so thankful. Next slide. So thankful to the many volunteers that we have in the program. So actually back up one, I'm sorry. So at this time, I'd like to ask Bev Laubert with the Administration for Community Living to say a little bit to all of us. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Carol. And Greg, I should say, I'm glad you stuck around after your first volunteer training experience. You've added so much to the program, as have all of you. So knowing that we have a mix of volunteers and staff on today's webinar, I'm going to kind of have a mix of comments. So first, I just wanted to thank all the speakers and NORC for highlighting the work of programs around the country. By recruiting and supporting volunteers, you are supporting residents. We know that there are not enough people to meet the advocacy needs of long-term care facility residents, especially in light of increasing and complex problems that residents are experiencing. Based on preliminary data, as in hot off the presses yesterday, from state ombudsman for 2023, there are over 15,000 nursing homes and 62,000 residential care communities with a total resident capacity of 3.1 million. Between 22 and 23 nationally, we saw a decrease. This is an interesting fact. We saw a decrease of about 600 volunteers, but an increase of 44,000 hours. In 2022, on average, volunteers donated 4.8 hours per month. I know some of you volunteers who are on this webinar probably are thinking only 4.8 because you probably did more than that. But again, this is a national average. And in 2023, 6.7 hours per month. So we saw that increase. 15 states lost volunteers, but also reported an increase in volunteer hours. 16 states reported an increase in volunteers and hours. In total, residents in 31 states benefited from volunteers spending more time advocating for them. Another piece of data, in 2023, 3,400 volunteers donated nearly 276,000 hours of their time to support residents. There's an organization called Independent Sector. It's a national membership organization for nonprofits, foundations, and others. And they use a formula to calculate the value of volunteer time. Based on those 276,000 hours, the value of ombudsman volunteers last year alone was $8.7 million. So for the volunteers joining us today, thank you. The programs could not have managed without you. From the inception of the program, volunteers have been a core component of the Ombudsman program as community extenders that lead to public awareness of the conditions in long-term care facilities. I've heard from states that volunteers face challenges in their advocacy, such as when facilities disregard a volunteer's communication about problems, dismissing them, as Greg said, as just a volunteer. This week, I heard about a Florida volunteer who helped residents navigate poor conditions in their home over a sustained period of time. And when the home eventually closed, it was critical that the volunteer knew the residents to advocate for them in a high-pressure situation. Volunteer visits are very meaningful to residents who feel isolated and without a voice when problems arise, and volunteers become that voice. It's important that we all reinforce that we don't have ombudsman programs that have separate volunteer programs, but we have ombudsman programs with certified representatives who volunteer their time. Volunteers are and should be integrated into the work of the Office of the State Ombudsman. ACL really values the contributions of volunteers to residents. Volunteers offer opportunities to support resident councils, develop relationships with residents and providers due to their frequency of their visits, and are key conduits of information back to program staff. The program could not be as successful as it is without volunteers. In 2023, 96% of nursing homes were visited one or more times, and 59% were visited quarterly. Our data doesn't tell us who made those visits, but I know much of that regular presence is by volunteers. My understanding is that most volunteers visit nursing homes and fewer visit residential care communities. Of course, that varies by state, but only 54% of those residential care communities were visited at least once. I encourage programs to explore the skills and interests of volunteers when allocating resources so the experience is fulfilling to the volunteer and meets the needs of the program. One of the volunteers in the California video mentioned that. I'm so happy to be part of this webinar today and appreciate NORC giving me the opportunity to express ACL's and my personal gratitude for the contributions of volunteers and acknowledgement of the unique and challenging work that you all do as advocates. And I must say, thank you to the program staff, many who take on additional responsibility of supporting volunteers. Thank you so much.
Bev, thank you so much. It means a lot to know that that the Administration on Community Living understands the importance of volunteers. So at this point, we're gonna do kind of a rapid fire thank yous to volunteers. So Jeffrey, yeah, this is yours, right?
Yes. You all set?
Yeah, you're ready.
Okay, thanks, Carol. Hello again, everybody. So for recognition, we do a few things here in New Jersey. We have a luncheon every year in December where we recognize the advocates. We do that in 7 of the regions that we have to make it easier for the advocates to attend. During that, we also give out recognition pins. We have pins for 1 year, 5, 10, and 20-year pins for advocates who have been with us that long. Recently, or just coming up, we have the honor of being recognized by the World Elder Abuse Day on June 14th. We're going to be having it down in the Trenton area of the capital, and we're going to have the advocates attend there where they're going to be recognized by the Attorney General. They're going to be having a discussion, a luncheon for them, and this is something brand new, and it's an honor that they want to recognize our certified advocates in that manner. So we're really looking forward to that. Thank you, Carol.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Boy, is this Alaska?
It is Alaska.
Excellent. Calvin.
Thanks, Carol. Yeah, these are just some of the ideas that we've thought about, and that some of them we've implemented as well. You can see there, just like Jeff, we have the commemorative certificate pins that we have, the 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. We've also customized certificates for them on in April for Volunteer Appreciation Month. We have our meet our volunteers on social media, and a shout out to Texas Long-Term Care Ombudsman, who we've used their the body of their program. So thank you so much. It's worked successfully. And then the birthday recognitions, we do a shout out during our monthly training video or training sessions, as well as social media. Next slide, please. And then these are, for the past couple of years, these are the recognition things that we've done. Like I said before, we used spotlights on social media, focusing on volunteers. We've highlighted names of our volunteers on our annual report. We have swag and t-shirts that we provide our volunteers when they're certified. Letters of appreciation, birthday recognitions, and constant thank yous from myself and their ombudsman mentors as well. Next slide. And this final here is just another social media spot that we showcase our volunteers. This one is of our newest volunteer, Monica. You know, she's just a tremendous volunteer who's made so much impact meeting with residents. Her story here showcases how she's inspiring and volunteering with our program. Just an amazing volunteer. And we do that with new volunteers or seasoned volunteers, just to show our appreciation. And I think that's all.
Great, thanks, Calvin. Mary, do you have any comments or thoughts about volunteer appreciation?
Yes, we do a lot of the same things that were mentioned. We have a volunteer appreciation luncheon every year, and we do have really special gifts that we give to our volunteers. This year, we're giving everyone a fleece jacket with the logo, and we also have special gifts depending on category of areas that they worked in, such as most hours worked, or, you know, it sounds funny, but number of complaints handled, you know, because that's a lot of work, you know, that takes a lot of dedication. So most number of activities, the highest number of activities, those are categories that we recognize in addition to long serving ombudsman in order to, you know, extend a special gift and give a shout out to the ones who are really doing excellent work. And in New York State, we also have something called Older New Yorkers Day, and the state ombudsman asks the regional programs to nominate volunteers from their programs to be considered for 2 volunteer ombudsmen to get the award every year statewide. And I'm really honored that our region had a recognized volunteer for this award last year, and we are again having one of our volunteers be a statewide volunteer award winner this year. So there are great opportunities like that, and just things like at monthly meetings, you know, provide treats and snacks and feed them when we can, when we're having like a longer training, and just to make sure that they're fueled up and ready to go, and that, you know, they don't leave with an empty stomach when they're with us. But taking a lot of the same kinds of things that the other programs and states mentioned, for sure.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Texas, yeah, dang.
Hi.
Hi, Melinda. I'm sorry.
Hello. No, that's absolutely fine.
I went blank on both your names, and I'm like,
I know, well, we're towards the end, so no, and I'm just reiterating a lot of the other things that the other programs have shared. We do a lot of the similar things. In fact, our volunteer appreciation luncheon, which we hold every year, is actually coming up in 2 weeks. So Greg and I have been very busy planning for that, and that is really probably our pinnacle, where we showcase all of our volunteer efforts, the work that they've done throughout the months. We recognize a rookie of the year, a volunteer of the year. We provide personalized certificates. The years of service pins we do as well. I always love when our volunteers wear their lanyards and you can see each little individual pin. I think our longest serving volunteer is going into her 22nd year now, I believe. We also do a monthly volunteer spotlight where we send a few questions we go sort of in tenure order, if you will, and they'll provide answers to the question about what got them started. And it's really wonderful when other volunteers share their stories to other volunteers about what got you into this. What was your passion? What was your drive? Because we have found that, and I think it was mentioned in a previous slide, word of mouth and just sharing the joy and the fulfillment that this type of volunteering does is one of the biggest things that we love about our volunteers. And it's what brings quality volunteers to the program. So the more we can recognize individual emails for birthdays, mailing individual birthday cards signed by the staff, anything we can do, we try to capitalize on, because like we said, these volunteers are the backbone of our program. We would not be able to do the things that we do without them.
Yeah, Marion, and I'm not afraid to beg either. I do that among the other volunteers all the time.
well, thank you. Why doesn't everybody turn their cameras on for this last few minutes? And I just want to ask you just kind of random questions, and anybody can shout out to go first. When we're looking at recruiting, do you guys recruit volunteers, now knowing that they're going to have to go through all of the training, but do you have jobs that are not someone who visits a facility? I mean, do you have a publicity volunteer or a web page or a speaker position or family council or resident council? Do any of you have jobs like that, or is everybody go to facilities and work on complaints and stuff with the Jeff?
So, thank you, Carol. As I mentioned before, with our new program, the community engagement, that's a separate team, but they go into facilities and they work with the volunteer in there and they engage them with the resident council. And also they've been talking to them about the family council, which is a new topic. So it's something that is brand new, that's being introduced, and the advocates are excited to get involved in the supporting of that. But they're not doing it themselves, but there's a separate team that's incorporating with them. I don't know if that helps, but.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We have used a volunteer to help out in the office, just kind of some miscellaneous tasks that we couldn't get to. We do always keep that open, and sometimes if a volunteer approaches us about thinking about discontinuing, we do explore with them, would they be interested in helping out in other ways, we do offer that.
Okay, thank you. I know at least one of you mentioned person to person recruitment. And so having your volunteers reach out maybe to their friends or acquaintances or whatever. Does anybody want to say anything more about how that has worked?
I just add that on a regular, maybe not monthly, but at least quarterly updates, we do the quarterly in-person trainings that I also follow up with a summary and send it out to the volunteers, all the volunteers, regardless whether they attend or not. But I always include in there important dates, which includes our upcoming next training dates, and emphasize, tell your neighbors, try to get more anytime in it. And the other good thing is it's typically volunteers who are already really successful and having a good time, and that maybe have even been with us for longer. We tend to recruit really good quality people as well.
Yeah, I think, I think, Greg, you mentioned the resource fairs, the health fairs that we go to, such a plethora of, and you get a wide variety of the public that comes in, and just recently we had a volunteer that I'm gonna have a class next week, who was at the senior center just moseying along and just, didn't know anything about who the ombudsman is, what an ombudsman does, and gave him my card. And then lo and behold, just a couple weeks later, he calls and says, I'm interested in this. I looked on your website and read everything, and I think I'm ready, and just those resources. We're actually next week, there's a women's spring flare that we're participating in. We're having a booth there. We're going to set up this afternoon. So all weekend long, we're just going to see a wide variety of folks. So, and then just the conversation, just having a conversation with the public, as you're talking to them, you can kind of sense their just their being, their personality, and says, what, have you ever thought about this, volunteering and so forth. So just, you never know, just talking to people, right? So, yep.
Yeah. So, I tell you what, reading, there's something about having chat open when you're trying to think of what you're going to say. And I was all ready, and then I was reading some of this chat. So, those of you that, no, that's not the question I wanted to ask. Daggone it. I'm just having a moment here, everybody. Okay, so how about this? On the NORC website, we have lots of ideas about appreciation. There is information that talks about the 2024 Volunteer Appreciation Week. And for those of you that have either a state or local program, that's a place where we'll put any thank you that, if you want to write a note or have a picture that you've taken at an event, so you can send it ahead of time or send it afterward, depending on what it is. We'd be happy to put those appreciation notes and pictures on our website. And again, that can be sent to the Ombud Center at the consumervoice.org website. And we'd love to put a shout out to your volunteers on there. So please, please do that. Next slide. Just a reminder that that we do have Facebook and all these other places. We also have the one of these is the app. You can search in Apple Store or Google Play, LTC Ombudsman Resource Center. And that way, when you're out visiting and you need to find some resource that you're talking to a resident or family or staff, you can automatically find it right there on your phone. Oh, I do remember what my question was. And that has to do with how have you guys had any success in recruiting a family member who maybe no longer has someone that's living in a facility? Has anybody figured out a way to capture
Yeah.
maybe someone who's
Well,
familiar
they
with-
usually find us.
Well, we have kind of
yeah.
two there That, but it's kind of a mixed bag. Sometimes it's folks that are a little too close to emotional circumstances from before, and they learn they're not really ready for it. But on the other hand, the folks that have come out, been great. We even had one group of one particular family council. They didn't volunteer with us, but they stayed on in a facility with none of them who had any residents still there. They were a very powerful family council for years after their loved ones had passed on.
Oh, great, thank you. Katie, would you go back to slide 4 and let's show that video as we close up today. Thank you all for joining. And thank you, speakers.
Someone in
Thank you, Carol, and everyone. Take care.
Thank you,
Yes,
Karen.
you. For you have the power to make a difference. There are more than 3 million people living in long-term care facilities across the country, and each one needs an advocate, someone willing to volunteer their time to check in and make sure they are getting the care they need. In short, they need you. Become a volunteer ombudsman representative and help ensure quality care for people living in long-term care facilities, and become someone's champion. You have the power to make a difference. For you, for them, for everyone. Learn more about the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program and how to contact the program by visiting theconsumervoice.org/gethelp.